Hoor jy my maat?
Madeline? Madeline? Madeline.
Marlijn.
Steek hom! Sy moet my leer ken. Bye bye. Hey guys, it's Gunther here from Outdoor Photo. I want to talk to you about shutter speed today. Hey guys, let's check it out. So we're going to dive into how shutter speed, along with obviously aperture and ISO, affects your images. But shutter speed specifically is broken down into a couple of different steps. First off, it's measured in a fraction of time. So we're looking at time, and generally speaking, or the rule of relativity, is that depending on what you're busy with, you're going to be using different time frames. If I go on a holiday with my wife and kids, loving it, that week seems like a second and it's over. But if we are going out in the end of June or January, where we're waiting for that post-December holiday paycheck, it just seems like that last week before the paycheck is like a month. So obviously, depending on your exposure and where you need your shutter speed, it all depends on what you're photographing, what genre are you shooting. The problem on your exposure is if you are exposing too fast, your shot's going to be overexposed. If you're shooting too low, you stand the chance of overexposing completely, and there is another problem in terms of movement. So you stand the chance of getting a blurry shot. If we speed it up, we're going to be able to freeze that moment right in that split second, so you get a sharp shot, but it is most likely underexposed. So whilst the one is sharp in focus, because the lens is a lot steadier when you're taking that shot in the moment, versus camera shake that can happen because the shutter speed is just too slow. And whilst the photograph is being exposed, your camera is moving. You pick up shutter speed or camera shake, and it looks like a disaster. I mean, a simple example of that, shooting at 60th of a second, actively shaking the camera a little bit, we get a couple of shots in there. That looks atrocious. So getting that sweet spot where your shutter speed is fast enough all depends on what you're photographing. Do you want everything in focus? So do you need a small aperture, or do you need a large aperture because you're shooting or photographing people? It all depends on what you're shooting. Takes us to the creative side of exposure. Okay, so we're trying to get these shots. I've got beautiful greenery in the background. There's a red car coming. I'm gonna try and nail this. Shooting at 25th of a second, and got it. Shooting at 50th of a second, f22, and auto ISO, because I just need the color pictured in the end. But managed to capture that shot, and that vehicle looks remarkably it's lappies. Just hold on, it's lappies. Hey Lapis, we just spotted you coming down January Masilela. Would you mind making a U-turn and spinning up the road here again? Yeah, it was us. Awesome. Catch you now. Cheers. So shooting at a much faster shutter speed, we managed to capture something in the moment. We get to freeze it up. We managed to capture it in that split second. So it freezes up any motion in your image because it happens so fast. But there are different ways to get these creative shots using your shutter speed. So guys, just to introduce, new in Outdoor Photo family and the team is Marlijn. She's going to help us out quickly just to demonstrate how we're going to do slow exposures or slow shutter speeds on portrait work in traffic. So this is that whole thing about don't go and play in traffic. We never always listen to our parents, did we? So obviously just waiting for some of the traffic to build up. I'm keeping an eye on the light at the bottom. and it's giving them a fair amount of space just to speed up. I'm shooting at 50th of a second, f13. It's going to give me a good exposure, and it's going to give me the effect that I'm looking for. Here comes the traffic. Check this out. Okay, we're doing that shot again in that angle. I've got some traffic heading up the road, so just waiting for the vehicles, trying to keep my peripheral vision open so that I don't shoot a bazillion shots for this. But once again, you need to get a steady rest. So I've gotten down onto one knee, and I'm basically capturing a little bit of steadiness coming out of the knee, support, and obviously in-body image stabilization plus stabilization out of the lens. Guys, I think we got the shot. If I have a look through this, I've got more than I need. This is perfect. You're amazing. Thank you. Let's head back and show you some of the tricks with ND filters and tripods. So looking at a little bit more creative or technical stuff, we're going to set up an architectural shot where we're going to photograph the shop front of Outdoorphoto, the Pretoria branch. And we're going to be having a look at getting some motion in the shot. The exposure itself is very bright. So if we're shooting at about f18, we don't want to stop down all the way to the smallest aperture. But for aperture, you'll have to tune back for the next video. We're going to try and set up a specific scene. We will be using neutral density filters from Benro. I love these kits. It's a pro kit. You can control so much through this, and using a couple of stops of light and also this pro kit, you can control the gradient neutral density filter. We now have Lapis on the payroll, so he's going to be racing up in here at a crawling speed, and that's going to give us the opportunity to do a very slow exposure. We're set up on a tripod, the Benro Rhino tripod with a VX30 head for that stability, because I'm too shaky. I won't be able to hold the shot. So looking at this, it is looking impeccable. I've got a little bit of dark areas, but my highlights are well protected. And what I can do now is I can do a much longer exposure. We managed to contact the people inside of the shop, so we're going to call action in a second, and they're going to be walking in and out of the shop. Okay, action! So we've just called action, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remember to switch off all image stabilizers, because that creates an effect in the image that we don't want. What we do want, however, is some slight movement. So in an ideal situation, we would be using a cable release so as not to shake the camera by use of hand. So setting up and shooting at a couple of different shutter speeds to try and get that blurry effect of people moving or vehicles moving past. That is looking spectacular. I've got a 4-stop neutral ND filter in here. I'm shooting at 1/8 of a second, f18, ISO of about 800. I've got the people walking in and out, so they are perfectly blurring. Making sure that I'm shooting horizontally so that I do not get any shake. I've got Lapis coming through the shot here again, and it is a beautiful blur. Just some slight movement in the image shows you a sign of life. We picked the perfect time of day here. That's it. That's a wrap. Thank you. But let's dive into the technical stuff. Check it in the studio. Let's go. Lekker guys, so let's shut it down on shutters. We're going to have a look at some of the technical situations inside of the camera. Your camera typically has a shutter mechanism, and looking at this, you have 2 curtains. Imagine blinds in your house, but where the first blind opens to expose the pixels on your sensor to light, the second blind closes, and then the first blind would reset so that the second blind can reset. This mechanism works like this to expose all the pixels exactly the same duration of time to light. Looking at the amount of light that comes onto the sensor, the longer the shutter is open, the more light passes through and onto your sensor. If you are looking at freezing things in the frame, in that shot, you need this action to be as quick as possible, to close as quick as possible. The longer it's open, anything that moves is going to blur, be it your camera shake or your subject moving around and then blurring in the shot. A simple example of this is what we're going to demonstrate to you right now. Enter Legos. Who doesn't like a Lego? By simply turning these Legos and photographing them at 160th of a second, you can freeze them in the moment. I'm going to get my Amarish to just quickly give us another spin on these. There we go. It's like a quick spin. I'm going to take a shot at 400th of a second. I'm going to take one at 1,000th of a second. And I'm going to take one at 30th of a second. So these different shots will illustrate exactly how this shot that's been taken, the detail is fast, sharp, and crisp. Obviously, my ISO had to compensate for the amount of light that is necessary into exposing the shot correctly. And looking at this shot, you've got a slower shutter speed, but you can see that movement starting to creep in right at the edges of the movement. And then when we look at the slow shutter speed, we've got a lot of movement in it. So depending on the genre that you're shooting, be it portraiture, be it wildlife or fast-moving action, or be it a landscape where you need a very small aperture to get everything in focus, and you need that longer shutter speed just to allow more light to pass through onto your sensor, just to get that exposure correct. Shutter speed has its creative effect as well as your exposure factor. So dial back into us and have a look at the aperture video coming out soon. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment in the section down below. Check out these videos and check out next week for more of these tutorials. Hit us up if you have any questions or comments or anything else. I don't know what the shot looks like. Good luck. Cheers. Check it out.